is my daily podcast for 4th of April 2021. A warm welcome to all of our friends, fans, community members, participants, squad mates, and indeed viewers worldwide on various platforms. Thank you for joining us, and first and foremost, I wish you all a very, very happy Easter. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for being valued members of our community. Hope you are all healthy, safe, and well. Hopefully you are spending your time indoors and adhering to social distancing. In Britain, we are fortunately having a situation that looks a bit better compared to a couple of months ago. Vaccinated more than 30 million people in the country already, and it's easier to breathe. I certainly can say for myself, I've had lengthy walks during the day, in fact, in our local nature reserve, and managed to get some sunlight and some, generally a different sort of structure to my day had been established. No longer was I spending 22 hours indoors and just venturing out in the middle of the night, but I did manage to get some sun and fresh air in the last week. So I'm feeling particularly good. Hopefully you're all very happy, as I said, healthy, safe and well. Hopefully you're all playing your favorite games during this wonderful lengthy bank holiday Easter weekend. This podcast is going to be very, very brief, and I just really wanted to reflect on the usual what we do for Easter, what appears to be the very best for all of us gamers worldwide, and with some recommendations, some tips and some ideas. We are going to have no major streams here on the channel on Sunday, Monday and maybe on Tuesday. I'm having my own Easter break, which is understandable. The streaming business, in fact, is very time consuming, and I've had a very, very busy channel in recent months. You know that I've been on my break recently for the last 2 weeks, but actually I also delivered my daily podcast and I gave you some of the daily streams, so it wasn't really a break if we were looking at the full meaning of the word, but somewhat a bit more relaxing, delivered within a different format, without the regulars and without the regular sort of streams that we usually have here on the channel. Most notably in recent years we've had Destiny 1 and 2 and Warzone, which in fact brought us the largest number of participants here, and I managed to establish some really very, very good communities attached to these channels. I can also reflect on the existence of the podcast, which is a novelty here on the channel, and I've had it already up and running for a few weeks, and it's been a great success. Most people are not watching it live, but they listen to all I said through playback, which in fact is very common for podcasts. You will get the vast majority of participants for the biggies always coming in at some other hour, because podcast is always there to be checked out. Unlike, for instance, live online gaming, where you really want to be watching the interactivity when somebody is doing something in Destiny, Warzone, or any other game, I suppose, in order to join forces and provide a few comments, tips, become an active participant, because gaming today really is a very, very curious activity, and I spent quite a bit of time during the last few weeks listening to various programs on the internet, and certainly the podcasts that were delivered from the In the Know forums, and everyone agreed that we reached the level 4 of development, which is basically telling us that each one of the big games like Destiny Warzone, Elder Scrolls, just to name a few, The Division. They become also a social network, and I think it's a very, very important idea. It's a very important concept for people to digest. I mean, firstly, we were buying games, as a one-off, and the games were expensive. Not many people had consoles and PCs. And the idea was you go to your shop, you buy the game, and then you play it at home, and that was about it. And then you will go to a shop again to buy a new one after you finish the old. And it was a linear, straightforward type of activity. The developer, the publisher, working on a product, delivering it, giving it to a customer, customer buying it, taking it back home, using his own platform, playing it, and that was it. Then we've had the development of, well, first of all, multi-platforms, where two consoles invented, as well as PCs. PlayStation, Xbox, and PC were battling it out in the early noughties. And still, we had a new additional novelty given to us, which was the existence of PC multiplayer. And I remember playing Diablo for the first time with other guys as a multiplayer, and it was a tremendous experience. And we didn't have really direct messaging service within the game like what we have today, where indeed the audio comes, but we were just playing the game and then using ICQ, which was a very popular chat messenger in those days. And then we just progressed forward. We've gone to the multiplayer stroke instant connectivity, where people were belonging to a particular game and they were building their own clans, groups, squads, and they played together. But they still didn't have those squads being mixed with all the other communities. And with the development of Facebook and Twitter, and then later WhatsApp, and all the other kind of instant messaging platforms, and most importantly the evolution of Twitch and YouTube with live streaming, brought this other section to fore. And that indeed was every game being like a social network, bringing in lots of people in order to join forces every single day at a particular moment in time when a streamer like myself, for instance, is delivering, let's say, Destiny, 10 o'clock in the morning. And all the participants, community members, will know that between 10 and 4 every single day, Destiny is going to be there. So this is going to be their live community forum, where they will be watching the game, chatting amongst each other, sometimes even outside of the actual forum, because you'll have your chat messages delivered within Twitch, and then, for instance, 2 or 3 people who met through the forum, through the channel, will connect elsewhere, do some whispers, and then they squad up and do the game by themselves. So it is that level that we are living through at the moment, and they called it level 4, but I would say we'll go to level 55 by the way things are going at the moment, and that's really quite astonishing. You have one game that is attracting so many participants with so much interest, not just in the game itself, but also in all of those social connections and interactions. So that's what gaming is about today. So certainly during this Easter weekend, we are privileged to have that on our disposal, and even more so, we are very happy to have had a wonderful new game launched on the 1st of April, and given to us even on Xbox Game Pass. For all of you who are on the Ultimate subscription, you will know what the Game Pass is about. And it's Outriders, of course, and I streamed it during the last few days, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's a fantastic game, and very similar to Mass Effect, Destiny, and Anthem, comprising the elements of all three, delivered in a very original format. Very enjoyable, and very, very hectic, very good narrative, and just really my sort of game. I just loved it from the beginning. The difficulty we experienced certainly since its launch, and that was, I think, more present within the second 24 hours, when we already had the game in circulation for one day, is that all different zones were coming in from everywhere, and it's a cross-platform game as well, so people coming in on PCs from all regions of the world, as well as those on consoles, and that caused serious problems with multiplayer access, and the game was crashing. There was problems with us accessing the server. So I did wait quite a bit yesterday, and just spend some time doing other things, doing admin, and then discontinuing my broadcast, waiting still to get the server access. But what really appeared to be remarkable was the approach of the publisher. They basically gave away the Easter weekend in full, and dedicated their works, obviously the time, to the problems that were occurring. So they had no respite 24/7 throughout the whole Easter weekend, inclusive of today, Easter Sunday, and they just kept all the messages coming, and everyone was fully informed about everything that they were doing for every single problem, both with patches and everything that was taking place. So I think the community was astonished by the quantity of messages they received through Twitter, Reddit, and all other forums, because that was very much unlike all the other publishers, which tells you it's all down to the company. I think the overall community will be very understanding when it comes to all these technical problems, because people know, we pay the money for the game, but you're doing everything possible to make sure that everything works, and it will work eventually. It's the problems which are described. People coming in on PCs and joining console community, doing the multiplayer, and therefore matchmaking and all other multiplayer activities are seriously affected. The servers are melting. I mean, there are technical reasons as to why that is. You can't really blame one person or just a developer for that. It's just that the tech is not still as advanced as we would like it to be. And I really was really surprised, pleasantly so, when I saw so many messages both coming in from developer and also messages for support. You had some people ranting, but that was just, very few and far in between compared to all the other understanding messages, which is not the case. All the other big guys. I mean, I remember the launch of Anthem and Fallout and Destiny, and the responses were like one response in 6 or 8 hours. Well, to be fair, they were responding also a bit quicker when certain major issues occurred. But this was setting up a new standard for the industry, and I really applaud People Can Fly for their sacrifice. First of all, sacrificing the Easter weekend. Don't forget, People Can Fly are in Poland, and Poland is very dedicated to the celebrations of Easter for obvious reasons. And they've just literally spent the whole weekend working on those technical problems, and we need to applaud the team for that. And I think the game began to work better as they obviously spent the time dealing with all the technical issues. But I think from my point of view, I'll carry on with my streams later in the week, because usually the biggest problem is the traffic, the excitement, the buzz of it all, the new game. Everyone wants to get in at the same time, and we've seen that with so many different games, as well as betas and alphas and demos. And I mean, certainly for Modern Warfare, for Warzone, the list just goes on and on. It's hardly any big, very, very major popular title that wouldn't have at least some of these issues. Obviously, some games, like Ubisoft games, generally work better because they have huge resources and they spend a lot more time testing and preparing, and therefore they manage to minimize problems in advance. And I've got to say, the Ubisoft games, I've not played them on the first day, but I did monitor the responses overall. We're not experiencing as many issues as, for instance, the ones coming from some other developers, Bethesda, BioWare, Activision, and a few other ones. We could name a few. So anyway, we all are very excited that our Easter indeed can be spent with a wonderful new game. But this is not the only one. We've had some other wonderful inclusions to the Game Pass, and for everyone who is indeed on Xbox, you'll know that we're really spoiled for choice. We had a huge number of games instantly accessible. A few of them are rotating, which means some games come up and then they depart after a certain number of weeks or months, but the vast majority are there to stay. And the solid foundation of Microsoft exclusives, together now with EA Play, with Bethesda, these games are never going to go away. They'll stay there for a very long period of time, and up to a point where maybe the economic model of streaming changes, or some other changes occur, but that's certainly not on horizon, and we really want to be embracing the concept and enjoying it as much as possible. So I think I'll tell you a bit more about the games which I consider to be a very, very family-friendly ideal for this Easter. But before then, I just want to reflect on this Easter overall. This Easter is the second one as we are living under the lockdown conditions and surviving this dreadful COVID pandemic. Nobody a few years ago could have predicted that the entire humanity would be facing such threats, and that we would have to be going through all the suffering and all the difficulties which are experienced in every country of the world by every citizen. And certainly I want to say that in our country we've spent a lot of time trying to work out what to do and discover new methods through which this dreadful virus could be at least cornered. And you've seen that with the invention of the vaccine, mass vaccination program, as well as very strict measures, I have to say, that the vast majority of people were abiding by did produce some results. So just want to say to all of our gamers and friends worldwide, particularly on the continent, as in Europe, certainly in the heart of Europe, Central Europe, the third wave of this dreadful pandemic already had started and so many people are affected. I can just tell you, we are with you, you are brothers, and we are absolutely feeling your pain. We want to just tell you that endurance and stamina is what's required. Do not listen to conspiracy theorists. Do not adhere to nonsense which some hubs on the internet seem to be fomenting. Just simply make sure that you adhere to all the measures, you comply with the government rules, and just carry on. Make sure you do not expose yourself to the virus. Make sure you protect the lives of your loved ones, particularly if you have some vulnerable members of your family, like people of mature age, or maybe some people with health issues or disabilities. Make sure that they are fully protected. Do not do what you should not be doing. And yet again, if you look at the reports coming from Microsoft and Phil Spencer, they indicated that up to 1.5 billion people joined our online communities during the last 13 months. And just think about it, an increase from 2.5 to about 4 billion people engaging with video games online. And that also includes people doing it through Android, because Xbox introduced new xCloud service, and almost every day we're getting a new game that is instantly accessible on cloud. And they also realized that lots of older games like 360 and Xbox original ones could be accessible if made, obviously fully tailored for the use on this service through various platforms, and they will not require the same input like Destiny or Warzone. They're less taxing on the bandwidth, they're easier to maintain, and they're also getting their versions with on-screen touch controls. So it means that you only need your phone in order to entertain a particular game. There's quite a list of them in there. I mean, I can give you an example, hang on. Because I was looking at it earlier, and there's quite a lengthy list. I mean, really, it's quite astonishing that the games like Hellblade, which is a fairly recent game, developed by Ninja Theory, Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, is instantly accessible through your cloud. So if, for instance, you are in your park and today's Easter and you really fancy doing a really exciting, very dark yet adventurous video adventure game, it's actually not an adventure game, it's more like I kind of, it's a strange sort of mixture of adventure, RPG and survival stroke horror. And if you fancy it, you just pull out your phone, you connect to your xCloud account through Xbox Game Pass app, and then you just click play, and that's all there is. You got on-screen touch controls. You don't need your controller with you. You need to have a reasonably good internet connection, or you can use obviously your 4G or 5G connection through your ISP, and that's it. And you just crack on. So you're enjoying your beautiful Easter weather. You are sitting in your park, you're social distancing from everyone, and you're enjoying your game. I think in the near future they'll also introduce some comms to these app-based games, because the comms are fundamental, be it audio or through chat. And recently the rumor's been circulating that Xbox do want to be purchasing Discord. They offered $10 billion allegedly for the service. And this is just a rumor, but certainly having something like Discord fully inbuilt to the app would be of huge assistance. And well, in fact, it doesn't have to be inbuilt. You can still use it as you go along, and you can connect. I'm not certain 100% whether you can at the moment be talking through Discord and then at the same time using your Xbox app. I've not tried it. I need to probably experiment with it, because a bit like on console, if you're using Spotify, Spotify will be playing as you are entering the game, so there's no issues. But if you're streaming, Spotify will not be streaming because of the filters that are preventing any form of copyrighted music to be streamed through Twitch or YouTube for obvious reasons. So Play with Touch gives you an abundance of choice. There are loads of games in there of all sorts, and there's a mixture of old style platformers with some new gen adventure games. We even have let me just see. We have games like Dragon Quest XI, which is a terrific RPG. It's one of the best RPGs I've ever played, and give you a list of very interesting titles that we can access. Minecraft Dungeons. I didn't tell you anything about Minecraft, one of the most popular games on the planet. It's also, as well as highly entertaining, enjoyable, hugely educational, and they're introducing sections through which people can learn about certain parts of history, and it's incredible. That game is probably the best example of a game becoming not just a game and social network, but also an educational tools. It's like three things together within one entity. It's just incredible. The other game that really is not on this list, we can't play it on Play with Touch through Game Pass app, is Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Origins. They also have that educational content, worth considering if you are an avid scholar of ancient history. And as I said, we have Minecraft Dungeons, Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, Killer Instinct, and you're playing it in Definitive Edition. Streets of Rage 4, a great game I played both on my Android and console, is Dead Cells. It's the old-style platformer with lots of different puzzles and bits and pieces for you to resolve as you enter the game. Really quite good animations and graphics. It does bring you back to the arcade style of the 90s, but it does have a twist, and I'm not going to give you any spoilers, so if you play Dead Cells, you experience it in full. Guacamelee, I can't even pronounce it, 2 is also accessible. Hotshot Racing, Slay the Spire. So these are the games which are very much like the old style, RPG striker platformers, and very easy to play. So if you are in a park, or if you are somewhere which is outside of your home, you're going to be able to access them with ease. And most important, some of the older games will not use the bandwidth as much. So if you're worried about your bill, the use of your 4G network, the actual use of bandwidth is not going to be as taxing as compared to maybe Hellblade: Sacrifice or Gears of War 5. Another game I highly recommend to everyone, which is the Game Pass exclusive, Xbox exclusive I should say, is a Don't Nod game called Tell Me Why, and all 3 chapters are there. You will be familiar with the guys who made Life is Strange, and this game is very similar. And they will be releasing the new episode, the new series of Life is Strange very shortly, which also looks incredible. It was presented recently through some of the Xbox presentations, and definitely I'm personally very excited about the new, as well as I was about this game, because this game is tackling some very serious contemporary issues regarding sexuality and family issues, so highly recommended. And it's being done in a way which is very similar to Life is Strange. Storytelling, the environment, everything else is easily recognized within that Don't Not signature, and there are lots of interesting parts of that story, full of surprises, full of twists, and I'm sure you are going to be thoroughly enjoying it. Very easy to play on a phone, because it's just like a point-and-click game, and then have lots of dialogue, and that's all there is. So most highly recommended. I'd say actually Tell Me Why and Hellblade. I'll actually give you the final recommendation of my top 5 once we go through the list. So we have Undermine, and we have New Super Lucky. New Super Lucky is a wonderful game. I've just played it the other day, and a game for all ages. You can bring in your family and friends. So enjoyable, so entertaining, full of humor, lovable characters. A bit like walking into an animated film. If you like Disney cartoons or Pixar's or Warner Brothers, or the old style Daffy Duck and Bugs Bunny types of cartoons, well, that's gonna be your sort of thing. Golf with Your Friends I've not played, but people who like online sports, definitely your bread and butter. The Tourist, most highly recommended. Jeff and Larry talked about it and they recommended it. I've not played the game yet, so I can't really say anything, but certainly it did receive very good reviews and lots of people played it on the console, but now it's accessible easily through touch controls on your Android as well. Then you have Iconfell. Iconfell was a Game of the Week a little while back through Xbox Game Club. Again, a very good, very highly entertaining old-style game. Scourgebringer. You have Celeste. Celeste is again another very interesting title. I played it a bit, really enjoyed it. And then in here which is interesting. We also have Gears 5 Game of the Year edition, but I don't think Gears will have touch controls. Let me just see. I'm curious to see whether they let me see. Yeah, for some reason it appears that it's not loading properly for some reason, but it's popping up on the list as if you would be able to play it with touch. So I'm not sure, I've not tried it. I know that previously Gears 5 Game of the Year edition was accessible through Android, and you'd have to use your controller. So that's basically what they had on offer. And then we have Enter the Gungeon, Fractured Minds, The Dark Crystal, Age of Resistance Tactics, The Walking Dead Season 2, and the complete season of The Walking Dead, and The New Frontier. You have the whole lot of them in there. These games are ideal for if you wanted to try out touch. You know, touch is going to work the best if you're looking at RPGs and adventure and point-and-click story-driven games. If you're looking at FPS, that will be very, very tricky for obvious reasons. You will need your controller in order to at least attempt to play it. And also, I think depending on your internet connection and your handset, if let's say you don't have the very latest handset and the latest Bluetooth connectable controller, you may be experiencing a lag, and the lag will be seriously affecting the gameplay. So, you know, something to keep in mind. And I always go for the games that appear to be the easiest to play, you know, the ones which are ideal for that sort of platform. And I think the ones I suggested definitely are going to be very, very enjoyable and easily accessible. Tuhu, Lunar Nights, River City Girls, Yes Your Grace, Monster Sanctuary. We have yet again The Walking Dead, the complete first season. What Remains of Edith Finch, recommend you that one as well. Yet again, it worked very, very well with touch controls. Bridge Constructor Portal, Nova Prophet, Spiritfarer, a wonderful game. I had it here on the channel a little while back, part of DRBMiller introducing. It's a game which I would say is probably the most ideal for Easter holidays. It's a game that gives you a sense of goodness and wellness and health and kindness. Also in it you can be hugging characters if you want to be displaying some affection, and considering that we are living in the era of social isolation where human touch and hugging is prohibited, then you know the game's going to provide you definitely with a lot of that. So very, very highly recommended Spiritfarer. Also previously Game of the Week on Xbox Game Club, and anyone interested, definitely, you know, my 10 out of 10. Ukulele and the Impossible Lair, more cred, Neoverse, The Little Acre, Don't Starve Giant Edition, Hello Neighbor. Hello Neighbor's there. Hello Neighbor is a great game, and it's really one of those games that is so well embedded in what, you know, it's a sort of fear of what the terrible neighborhood or terrible neighbors would be like, and loads of interesting situations and methods and means to which I guess you will attempt to resolve the issues. Highly recommended. We have also Night Call, another game I introduced here on my channel, and thoroughly enjoyed it. Found it to be very, very political and very contemporary. It's interesting because the game comes across as something on Switch. It's very, very basic, very basic animation, basic graphics, but it's full of phenomenally well-written dialogue. And you basically play a taxi driver who is roaming the streets of Paris at night, and he had been procured through a police inspector in order to trace and track a serial killer who is causing mayhem on the streets of Paris. And you get to know everything about the Paris of today. It's just extraordinary. The types of people he picks up represent the usual people you'd find in Central Paris, and the politics of the era, the bureaucracy, the state involvement in various individual affairs, everything is in there. So I love the game. And also it does have a twist towards the end, because if you are picking up some of the passengers who are connected to the killer, you need to ask specific questions to extend the game. Otherwise you may end up in the cab, being the taxi driver, with the killer, not knowing that he is the one, and therefore you will die, and you get like a really bad ending, which is what you do not want. So beware. It's a tricky old game, and unfortunately that's exactly what happened to me. So happened live on air, so I was introducing it here. Not the type of outcome I wanted to receive, but there you are, such is life. Nightcall, highly recommended. Pillars of Eternity, Complete Edition, a great RPG. I mean, anyone who likes Diablo or the Elder Scrolls, the first two editions, episode 1 and 2, will be definitely in awe of Pillars of Eternity. Incidentally, Pillars of Eternity was quite a rare game for quite a while, but now we can access it everywhere. And you have it even here on your Android if you're on Xbox. Otherwise, PS Now services have it also through the live streams, and a great game. Star, Renades, Beholder, Complete Edition, Monster Train, Desperados 3. Desperados 3 I need to play. I've got it here on the top of my to-play list, and I played the old Desperados, and anyone who is into Wild West or Red Dead Redemption or Call of Suarez, they're definitely going to be... is it Juarez or Suarez? Juarez, I think it is. Definitely you're going to be interested in Desperados 3. Project Winter I still have on the top of my list. It's a game we'll be introducing soon here on the channel. It's a multiplayer through which, it's a very strange multiplayer. It's family friendly, and you have a group of people who need to be surviving dreadful polar kind of wintry conditions, and it's a survival game, so I'm very excited about it. Also, a few months ago it was Game of the Week on Xbox Game Club. Xeno Crisis, obviously be familiar with Xeno. Stranger Things the game. Stranger Things 3 the game. That's another one I need to play. It's interesting, when I'm giving you my personal recommendations, going to the list, I'm discovering those games that are on my list, still wasn't able to get to them. Funny old world, eh? Viva Pinata, we have both the original and tip, as well as Jetpack Refuel. So if you're asking me about my personal recommendations, I'll give you a list now. Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, Dead Cells, Tell Me Why, Super Lucky, Celeste, Gears 5, Dragon Quest 11, Walking Dead, any of these, 5 of them are available. What Remains of Edith Finch, Spiritfarer, 10 out of 10, Hello Neighbor, Nightcall, Pillars of Eternity, and that's it. So these would be my recommendations. So if you are wanting to spend your time outside, perhaps not with family and friends, but just in seclusion, enjoying some nice weather and getting some fresh air in your local nature reserve or within your vicinity, you may want to try some of these. It's very easy if you are a subscriber of the Ultimate, but if you're not, what you can do is you can subscribe today just for £1, and you'll get anything between 1 to 3 months of free access, depending on where you are region-wise, and you can try all the games. And once you download the app, you'll see immediately they have a section in there which is a subcategory, Play with Touch. Nothing easier than just pulling your phone out, loading your app, and then cracking on with, as I said, Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, or Gears 5, or Spiritfarer, or any Walking Dead. So that is really, truly wonderful. The other thing I wanted to say is I tried several games this weekend myself. They are not on this list, and I can certainly tell you that in addition to Outriders, the game I played already quite a bit through the demo and cracked on with initially on a new character, but there were glitches and these technical issues I described earlier, so I couldn't carry on the new character, so I had to carry on where we left off previously. And be no major glitches. The only problem I had was not being able to connect to the server. That's the only thing I experienced. So Outriders was the game I've been entertaining this weekend, but most importantly a game that's been on top of my list for 2 years, and I've been kind of postponing it for many months because of its volume. It's a game of huge magnitude, with a massive big open world situated in a galaxy with loads of activities, plenty of side quests, lots of battles, and many very story driven missions. This is the Outer World, right? The Outer Worlds I played while I was attending Infogamer 2 years ago, and I loved it. the original version of the game was a bit more difficult compared to what we get today, as they reworked the whole prologue with new characters and new activities. And I've had some messages from my colleagues that indicated now is the best time to join because they reworked it's a really good way in. And I decided, well, why not, after streaming Fallout, one of my favorite games, here on my channel, as we were supporting Bethesda and ZeniMax acquisition of Microsoft. We've had quite a few streams during the last couple of weeks of Fallout 3, and we'll carry on, of course, as we resume the regular schedule next week. I thought, well, why not try The Outer Worlds? Obviously not on my broadcast, but do it by myself elsewhere. And I was just hooked straight away. The game's just really remarkable, and it really surprised me that on one hand, the game appeared to be having a huge number of characters, and there was so much written material. There was there was an abundance of dialogue, coming from every single character, and so easy to follow the story. So it's so great to be able to talk to many different people who are being met at various locations, and you can piece together the bits of the puzzle with ease. I've got to say, it does really remind me of how some developers spend a lot of time on every single bit of dialogue and make the story so incredibly important. And I've listened to what was his name? Mr. Goldberg. He is the chairman of NYC Video Game Critics Association, and he said that for himself, as a veteran, he's a chap in his 60s, he's been a writer on film and television series and music and eventually in video games. He said that he had never enjoyed any medium better than what he had done in the last 20 years with video games from about year of 2000. And he said for him, the narrative, the story-driven content is the most important thing. That is what keeps him going, because obviously a former film critic and a person who watched many films, and obviously narrative films, this is what he liked the best. And it was very interesting that he was re-emphasizing the story-driven content, because presently we did see that with Fortnite, with Warzone, with Destiny, with other games. They were pursuing the other direction, which is based on group activity that doesn't have to be story-driven, which makes it a lot easier for the developer. Don't forget, Mass Effects of this world are very, very hard to make, because you need to be mapping and planning and writing for every single character with a multitude of different options, with the questions-driven content, where in fact if you're asking something very happily, positively, you'll get one lot of outcomes, and then if you're looking at somebody being unpleasant, aggressive, there will be a different sort of turn to the story. So that itself is very, very complex for the developers, and entering the world of the Outer Worlds has been a wonderful experience. And also I worked out that I can use my setup in a different fashion. I play the games always standing, but in this instance, because it's Easter, I decided I'm going to be lying down, and I'll be playing the Outer Worlds, and it just worked wonders. And it just really was the best possible game for me for this weekend. I kind of embraced the world instantly, and relished every one of the dialogues, and got to know all the characters, and I'm progressing rapidly forward. But when I look at the number of quests, the size of the galaxy, I mean, honestly, it is absolutely incredible in size. And you're familiar with the second DLC that's just been released last week. In fact, that second DLC was a reminder to me after I've seen it on this week on Xbox. And then I had some messages from my streamer colleagues and other people who work in the industry that absolutely you've got to go back to, because the DLC is excellent and it's blending in well with the story and all this. And what's particularly curious is that Obsidian, who are one of my favorite developers, they worked on Fallout New Vegas, and many people tell you they like that part of the series the best. And it's not difficult to see why, because we've had plenty of dialogue in 3, 4 and 76, but in New Vegas the dialogue is being built differently, and you are experiencing those characters from a different viewpoint. You become a lot more emotionally attached to certain characters and situations. It's not as great as, for instance, in the game I'm also playing at the moment, Yakuza, but it is distinctly different compared to the other series, other parts of the series, and I think Obsidian are definitely the developer that is truly excelling with the works on story-driven games, and The Outer Worlds is the very best example. So a lot to get through, and I think you have also various difficulty levels. I always choose the story difficulty level because it gives me a lot more of the story, and there isn't such great emphasis on fighting. So I like Mr. Goldberg. I'm definitely a person who is always dedicated to story-driven games, and it's very easy and very soothing to say that I can basically get all those bits of puzzle together with ease, so I can understand the story. You get some games like Destiny, for instance, which is delivered in non-linear fashion. I played Destiny for more than 2,000 hours, and I still don't know the story. And I'm not the only one. I talked to Sekapupu, who spends probably more hours on Destiny than myself, and he said exactly the same. He does remember some details. He'll remember, for instance, what certain weapons are being used for, where the weapons were discovered, and as to why they were there. But to place that within the overall galaxy of Destiny universe is very, very difficult. So, different, I guess, different games are offering us a different degree of engagement, and we are being then attached to these games for different reasons. And certainly Destiny is not the game that will grab you for its story-driven content. It will bring you in for its diversity, for its capacity to draw in larger groups of people to do it together. A game which is ideal for that, what I call community-based content. And I think The Outer Worlds, perhaps not, because you are playing a single-player game and people will be watching. They'll be active viewers, but they'll be also bystanders. They will not be active participants. And this is where obviously the difference is. So The Outer Worlds, definitely my Easter game, the big one of this weekend. And in addition to it, I'm also very, very elated to have played this week Yakuza. And I've started out on Yakuza 3. I've gone down the route of being introduced to the lead character, Rikuyo. Is it Rikuyo? Rikuyo, I beg your pardon. And his orphanage, as he's a former Yakuza gangster who had decided to turn tables and do something noble. And it's incredible how quickly you feel for those children. And the sequences in there, they remind me of Japanese animated films of the 70s, which I used to watch, and I was just astonished by how emotive they came across. And you kind of cried with the characters, you laughed with them, you experienced every one of their emotions, and Yakuza's got it all. Thanks to Jeff Rubinstein for recommending it for so many months, and I finally joined the club. And in fact, I got a message from Jeff the other day. I wrote to him saying that I was truly delighted to have discovered that all he said was indeed fully true. So it wasn't just his own kind of personalized vision of Yakuza, but it was just exactly how it affects everyone else. And he responded immediately, so it was wonderful. And thank you, Jeff, for responding. Always appreciated. Our community here is delighted to see that one of the most important people in Xbox is responding to our community. And it's fantastic, isn't it? Because it's a small channel on Twitch with a medium-sized community, but having one of those most influential people of Xbox to connect with us is always a remarkable experience. So I'll keep writing to Jeff about Yakuza because I know he's a huge fan. He's probably the most dedicated and responsible member of the team to bring Yakuza to Xbox overall, with all the installments. We had the whole series now through Xbox, more than 1,000 chapters. Can you imagine 1,000 chapters to get through? And I'm on chapter 5. I mean, I'm going to play for 10 years. And most important thing in Yakuza is that its storytelling is second to none. It really comprises all sorts of games into one. There's a fighting game, there's RPG, there's open world, there's a family-friendly game coupled with mature content, funny dialogue, and there's so much about contemporary Japan, the way people relate to each other, from family relations through the way people live, global politics, geostrategic elements of the current sort of status, and all sorts. Everything is in it, And like Jeff said, it's delivered in a format of a television series with endless plots and endless episodes, and each one of them is equally significant but equally interconnected. You keep hearing about certain characters, and you keep hearing about where he was before, the lead character. You keep finding out about new people who want to interfere with his orphanage and everything else that he did in recent years, and everything seems to be blending in perfectly. So you could just imagine that the writing team was having to accomplish, an unbelievably difficult task of everything being so well connected, and a very large team of people must have worked on the game as well. I mean, it's just that I've gone for Yakuza Remastered Trilogy, and they just look at it as well. I've tried Yakuza 4 on PlayStation now, and performed well, but it was nowhere near as good as what you have on Xbox Game Pass if you're entering the remaster, and everything's next gen. The graphics, the sounds, everything's smooth. It's just the best possible. So I can't really recommend it high enough. So these were my two games for this Easter holiday. I've not done any other streams, as you've seen. We did a bit of Outriders. We'll carry on with Outriders later in a week. And we have a lot more to follow. We have to get back to Destiny and Warzone, most important. So 3 big games on the channel. And also we have quite a number of games there on the list to be done through DRBMiller introducing. And we've had quite a few this year, I have to say, and the feedback I received so far has been positive. So very, very grateful to all who are indeed taking time to write. The only difficulty with the introducing section is we can be slightly flimsy about certain games, because if the game is very lengthy, we will not be able to occupy the slot continuously. Maybe within a week we'll have 4 or 5 streams of, let's say, Spiritfarer, but being able to play it back to back, unless it's a short game, will be considerably difficult, because we have all the new titles coming in. We want to be always introducing whatever is exciting out there, and as you've seen in certainly recent months, there is no shortage of titles on Xbox Game Pass, and they're really killing it, honestly. I mean, I've seen and heard a few things that were coming from the other competitor, PlayStation, but they're very, very far behind. And I know that some people will be probably more keen on buying the console because of its accessibility and ease of use in most regions of the world. But to give an example, people said, well, Microsoft Live Services are not accessible in many regions of the world, but PS Now, for instance, the service which is delivering live streaming of games, is also not accessible in most countries in Europe, which I didn't realize that it was easily accessible everywhere, but it's not the case. It's only about 8 or 9 countries in Europe that can access it, and that's too bad. Honestly, I think we are living in an era where we want to be having the instant access wherever we are, and that's exactly what the Microsoft team are trying to achieve. But they've invested a huge amount of revenue into the human resources, and I've listened to the podcast yesterday, in fact, which was with the leader of the xCloud team, and he's been with the company for more than 20 years. And then there was also a lady who's, I think she's an executive on backward compatibility team, and they talked in depth about the hard work and everything else that they did. And when she described that for an old game, every single item has to be kind of walked through. Every single thing needs to be looked at. You have all the items in inventory of the old games like Splinter Cell or Halo, and you need to look at every single detail and needs to be manually checked. Just think about the volume of work which is there. She said they worked on backward compatibility for about 6 years, and obviously they're getting somewhere with all that's been offered so far, but she said that's nowhere near to all that is still to follow. So this is fantastic, and this is a very, very novel, productive approach, because basically some people who are running the services they're literally like gaming veterans, people who are playing games for 40 years, and what they wanted to do was to make sure that if, for instance, something they really loved from the 80s or the early 90s, a game they played extensively, let's say Fallout 1, would be then easily accessible on all platforms everywhere, and they can play it with their children and with their grandchildren. So it's similar to what we had previously with films and TV, or later on videos and DVDs. You have a video, the DVD, then you can play that DVD to anyone from your family at any moment in time. And today obviously with streaming services, instant access from wherever you are, but it's not quite the same because not all titles are accessible through streaming platforms. It's only a small number of titles, so therefore retaining original hard copies of certain films still is of significance, although the industry is going down the route of offering the instant streaming services being the main thing at the moment. So there will be still space and time and future for either of the industries, either industry producing physical product and then the other streaming services that give you everything on a plate instantly on a subscription fee. I mean, I'm very keen on everything, but certainly for anyone who's been watching films and playing games for long enough, I can tell you that instant access is of huge benefit. And honestly, if you played together with me Skyrim Special Edition and the recent Fallout 3 edition, which I played, and some of the older games like Halo, for instance, reworked, it's like playing a new game, but yet you're being brought back to the old and to the way things were in the past, and you're just being brought back to the very best of your memories, and able to enjoy them with newer generations, and people will be able to discover all those wonderful elements of those games, the gameplay and some of the characters, and some hidden corners in the open world which you enjoyed, and it kind of bridges the gap between different generations. Somebody who played Halo for 20 years now getting to his Twitch channel, quite a few guys coming in who are popping in and then communicating, the members of the younger generation who are interested in discovering certain sections of the world in there, and the veteran is going to be able to help, and also through the means which are very state of the art. I need to say that when I played Halo Combat Evolved last year for the first time through the remastered version, which is available on the Master Chief Collection, the flavor of that open world was very similar to Destiny 1. It just felt, and you could really tell that Destiny is an organic progression from the original Halo trilogy if you are playing it. But the Master Chief Collection is just a complete and total masterpiece. It's incredible what they've done to it, and for anyone who's interested in doing an exciting multiplayer, that's the game you want to be doing. Because if you like Destiny and shooters, they're going back to the Master Chief Collection, bring you to its roots, and you are going to have a lot of fun, a lot of many hours of entertainment, and most importantly, activity which is exclusively community based. I think that really is what Bungie's signature is. That is the trademark. That is what they excelled in over the years. Coming back to the podcast and backward compatibility, this is the future. So I think anyone who is interested in serious gaming, you will have to be exploring all of the Microsoft's offerings, and they offered on a very good price. I think with the new generation of the executives, I think they had a major overhaul almost 10 years ago, and particularly with Phil Spencer and his team coming in, they become an organization with a completely different agenda, and purchasing Bethesda and eyeing up Discord, bringing in some of the best development studios like Obsidian under the same umbrella group is definitely a very good way forward, and I look forward to all that is to follow, honestly. And so really we're coming to the end of our Easter message, and if there's one thing to say, well, in addition to I wish you all a very happy Easter, and I wish for everyone to be healthy, safe and well, I want you to be having a wonderful, wonderful Easter Sunday and the prolonged Easter holiday with your family, with your loved ones, obviously in a very safe COVID protected environment. And I want you to be choosing some of the very best games on offer. I recommended quite a selection. I've gone down the route of recommending you all of those which you can be playing on your Android instantly through Xbox Game Pass, because I think as we have a wonderful weather here in Britain during our Easter weekend, perhaps people want to go outside and people want to get some fresh air and enjoy a bit of sunshine, and therefore having that handset with you if you want to have half hour of interesting entertainment will definitely be at your fingertips, and you will enjoy all that is to be discovered there. So if you're not a subscriber, I mean, I'm not biased. I don't support any of the companies directly. I'm not sponsored. I'm just telling you all from my personal experience. And I've been with Microsoft and Sony for 25 years. You know, I mean, not being with them in terms of I've never worked for them, but I've been using their services and products from the very beginning. And in the same way as the industry evolved out there, the effects of evolution were felt within me. And certainly what I've seen with Xbox Game Pass and things on offer during the last 5 years has been truly remarkable. And I was grabbed by backward compatibility. I think for me that was the first thing. I hated the idea of having to buy for the second or the third time the same game if I want to play it on the next gen console. And you know, with PlayStation that's the way it is. Can you play PlayStation 1 games anywhere? You can't, unless you have the old console. Doesn't look particularly good on your next gen 4K TV. But with Splinter Cell, which was released on Xbox Original, you know, you just stick a disc in or purchase it digitally online. You download the update, which is emulating the original game, and that's it. You crack on. It looks awesome. The games that have been remastered and reworked look even better, but you know, you need to put in perspective. If you want to do the old game, it will not look always as razor sharp as the newest ones here on the present and age systems, but you are going to be able to play it, and there are no problems with speed or buffering or frame rate or anything else. So definitely a great way forward, and a fantastic way through which we can revisit some of the older titles in our libraries and remind ourselves of all we did maybe 20-25 years ago. And you know, the one game I really want to play, want it to be reworked or redone, is Silent Hill 1. I played it a lot originally. It did take me a while to complete it at the time, to tell you, on PlayStation 1. I loved the game, and you know, we don't have it on PlayStation now. You got on PS Now services the sequel and the third installment, but you don't have the original because it's PlayStation 1. It's a different tech, you know. They've not invested in reworking and remastering and doing something about the games, which is significantly different, you know, with Xbox. And all the games from the Xbox original are accessible, the vast majority, through backward compatibility. And they said that they wanted to have, I mean, if there wasn't this dreadful pandemic really setting in last year, then I believe we could have had a full backward compatibility, but that's certainly the target for the Xbox Series X and S. So I think within the next 2 years it's likely we'll have all the titles there. I think they've gone up to 80%. So, you know, 80%, and it's funny because you'd imagine that 80% includes all the very best games, right? And that maybe 20% is the games that didn't, you know, attract particularly interest or anything like that. But it's not like that. Actually, it's not quite like that. One of my favorite games of the noughties, LA Noire, is not backward compatible. I want to play it. It's not backward compatible. So if you want to play it, you've got to purchase it. But that's not down to Microsoft. It's all down to Rockstar. We know that Rockstar are not very keen on dropping prices, and it's just one of those things that they kept going over the years. So anytime I have a look, the price is always between £17 and £19 for LA Noire, and frequently it would be like £38 still. And I've not seen Red Dead Redemption drop the base game below £25. It's been £25 solid, and considering they made $750 million on the first weekend, it's you know, mind-boggling as to why they would want to keep up with such high prices. But they believe that that represents the standards, not just of the game already in circulation, but that represents the standards they want to be carrying forward to the future. So these games will make the revenue for them to have, you know, for future investments. And to be fair, Rockstar, they have that trademark, and any of their games will, you know, have huge signature. You recognize the developer straight away as you enter the game, and you know, that's just the way it is. Alright, so we've come to the end of our Easter broadcast. Thank you so much for being here with us today, and thank you for supporting both my podcast and the channel and our community in here. I wish you all a very, very wonderful Easter weekend. Let's have it in peace. Let's have it in social isolation. Let's make sure that we're all healthy, COVID protected, safe and well, and that we are all enjoying the peace and tranquility and beautiful weather and all else that Easter is giving us this year. On that note, I shall wish you all a very, very good afternoon, and as I said, we'll carry on this weekend at a slower pace, but there will be podcasts on every day, and we'll carry on with our regular game streams later in the week. Until then, I wish you all a very, very good afternoon.